You've all heard of comfort food, the kind of food you like to eat regardless of its nutritional value, but it just makes you feel good. Did you know movies operate the same way? That's right, we're going to talk about the movies that we like regardless of critical praise, box office totals, and overall audience reception. These are the movies we love for being what they are, why they are, and how they are. These are our comfort flicks.
Tracy! It's like he's reading my mind.
Oh, Tracy, watch out!
Leave Dick Tracy to me.
Move in and take your positions.
I want Tracy dead!
Tracy, let's go! Good luck.
Warren Beatty is Dick Tracy.
So in the train of thought, realizing that Mortal Kombat had an anniversary, we realized there's another film that is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. And this is a film that actually meant a lot to me when I was a little kid. And so I'm really happy that here I am now and I have a platform in which to reflect on how much I love this movie. It is Dick Tracy.
You have just said goodbye to oxygen.
Aren't you gonna frisk me?
Stupid cop.
I saw it when I was a kid. I did not see it in the theaters. I remember it coming out. I remember the trailers and the commercials. I remember the toys. It just wasn't something I was wanting to watch. 1990.
That was
I'm trying to think, what the hell did I even like in 1990?
well, around that point, that's when, of course, Batman was being huge,
No.
Indiana Jones.
No. 1990 is a big blur. I don't remember much of anything that I was into or liking. I really have no idea. I can only remember up to 93, and that's when Jurassic Park came out. Prior to that, I don't remember anything.
Dick Tracy just blew my mind when I was a kid. First off, because around that point, comic-based movies were still kind of finding their footing. I mean, Batman had come out, which really blew people's minds, but then you had Dick Tracy trying to do a completely different approach to a admittedly different kind of comic strip, and they went their own way. They turned it into a living comic book. Now, for some background, the comic strip Dick Tracy ran pretty much from the early 30s, going for a very long time. It was created by Chester Gould. A movie had been in talks to be made for decades, for a very, very long time, and it passed through a lot of hands. Ultimately, it landed in the hands of Warren Beatty, who was a big fan and who, in the beginning, just wanted to direct if they could find a better actor. And a lot of actors were looked at for the role, but ultimately everyone just said, you know what, Warren, you just go ahead and do it yourself.
I would say when I was young, it was actually slightly unnerving because of how everyone looked. Like, not everyone, but like the villains, how they looked odd. You know, there was things wrong with their faces, and it was not the exaggerated ones. It was more just the more subtle ones.
Oh, you're talking about like just how some of the regular cops just either have accentuated noses
Like,
or
their facial features were just not. I'm not talking like the brow or little face or where it's an extreme, but like just small changes was very unnerving. Like nobody looked normal. It was kind of creepy, except for like a handful of characters. Actually, were just like average people. As a young kid, I found it kind of boring because it is actually very grounded. As crazy as everyone looks, it is a grounded story.
Yeah.
It's not like Batman where, you know, you get all these crazy things. Like, yeah, they look weird, but you could put normal looking characters into that position. It's the same story. The story is actually a very standard gangster story.
This was my first exposure to the gangster genre, and I'd say if you wanted to introduce kids to that particular subgenre of film, Dick Tracy is probably the right film to do it. And what's interesting is that this is actually kind of a grisly movie. There's actually a lot of pretty horrific deaths in the movie, and Disney was very wise to release this through Touchstone Pictures because there's some pretty horrific things. People are getting shot. There's a king-size Tommy gun battle in the third act.
Yeah, that ball went down. I mean, there's no blood, but
it's
they mowed down. Was it
Flat Top,
he
Itchy?
Just mowed down.
Yeah, and there's big ass explosions. It doesn't hold back punches, and I'm honestly really impressed that Disney didn't mess with them.
And they do some Capone level like offing of people. It's not even just, oh, I'll shoot you. It's, you know,
drown you in cement and dunk you.
Yeah, it's like pretty horrific stuff, which is good because that's kind of the world is. But they also even have some dark plotting. Like the kid is being abused by this guy and having to you kind of have an, what was it, Oliver Twist type thing.
I read that this was one of the last movies to use matte paintings for the backdrops for a lot of the scenes.
I think it lends to the fact that everything's so colorful and clean that the matte paintings blend better than trying to make them realistic. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Because that's another thing. Everything's so clean. Like, everyone's wearing primary clothes, suits, no dirt.
Yeah.
The streets, clean.
Yeah, the streets are clean.
I mean, I'm like, you got.
It's like, are we sure this is a crime-ridden city? Because
well, yeah, maybe they clean up after themselves.
Yeah, clearly litter's not an issue. Just the occasional drive-by shooting, and
but they don't bleed, so there's no blood to clean up.
Exactly. I mean, Tess Trueheart's apartment building gets blown up, but she's able to return to it.
Yeah, she's got no dirt. I just noticed that watching. I'm like, there's no. They even like paper on the ground. Like, I've seen New York, and there's darts.
The trash cans are so clean, the kid's able to eat a perfectly good-looking
Yeah.
sandwich.
Oh, no, boy goes into there's a almost full white bread cheese sandwich, and this thing has got no dirt on it. This is
No dirt.
It's cleaner than if you bought it in the store. And I'm like, how the hell did you find that, kid? Like, damn.
He just struck gold.
That's better looking than my fridge. What the hell?
They have a really great kid surrogate in the form of the character the kid.
Yeah, he's actually not as annoying as you'd expect him to be.
I never even begun to think annoying. Actually, it was kind of
It's a
apparent.
trope. They sometimes will have an annoying kid, and it's like, no, I mean, he's a little pissy, but...
Well, for justifiably so.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
he's been on the streets, doesn't want to go to the orphanage. One of the things I always say I liked about films back then was that they were really good at empowering kids and not sugarcoating. Movies like The Goonies, like Explorers kind of thing. And I like that still carried on into movies like Dick Tracy, where you have the kid actually going into life or death scenarios. There's one point where he rescues Dick Tracy, and there's another part where the kid's narrowly dodging bullets, and he ultimately, in the end, saves the day by tripping over the blank. You never find yourself disbelieving it because the kid has had such a rough life that...
Well, you also get the connection with him and Dick Tracy, because originally Tracy's talking to him like a kid, but then I like the scene where the kid runs out, he's getting like new clothes, and he runs out because he doesn't like what they're doing, and he's like, talks to the kid like an adult.
Kid, your clothes don't smell very good, okay? Now, if you don't want to wear a suit, just go back in there and say you don't want to wear a suit. Otherwise, pick the suit you like.
Yeah?
Yeah. Tracy isn't trying to control him. He's not trying to look down at him or anything. It's actually a little bit even and gains some trust.
As I said before, this movie was one of the ones I loved, worshipped when I was a kid. And I think a lot of it, and I think you might have actually hit the nail on it as to why, is because I kind of saw myself as the kid and I saw this hero figure. Now, I know the timing is a bit off to have a movie that shows like a paragon of police efficiency, but let's face it, this movie did give us some pretty unrealistic expectations of cops that actually are committed to justice. But for a kid, this is the kind of hero figure that you kind of want.
Yeah,
and
it's very fanciful, but if you look at the villains, they're all so over the top. Like, you look at them and you go, actually, no, wait, in the beginning when they go after Lips,
yeah, Lips Manless, yeah.
when the cops show up, they're ugly looking. Their faces are all messed up. And I'm still going, they're not good. And yeah, it turns out they work for a big boy.
Yeah.
So and they weren't cops. They were completely like just dressed up as them.
Mm.
And it's like, actually, if you think about the movie, all the normal looking people are all good, and all the freaky looking ones are all bad.
Yeah, which I don't know what that says. I mean,
yeah,
but,
I'm like, but for a comic book, if you're trying to like show, because comics have to show more, good versus evil. They kind of went with that.
Mm.
Like, I mean, spoiler if you don't know this movie, but the blank is the dark side of Breathless, who's beautiful.
Yeah. There's a little hot button issue we have to talk about. This was a performance of Madonna's, one that people actually don't seem to have as much of a problem with compared to other efforts. And actually, I think she was like...
This was during the time when she was actually doing some good stuff. I mean, League of Their Own wasn't a couple years later, and then Evita was a couple years later from that. Mm-hmm. So she was fine. Like, I don't think anyone questioned it. I don't remember that being... Madonna's going to be in the movie, but nothing like, she's going to be... It was like, no, she was around the Vogue Vogue time.
Well, actually, Vogue, what came out with the tie-in album that she did with this, I'm Breathless, which is a really great album, by the way. She did a tie-in album called Madonna, I'm Breathless, which she used, actually, a lot of the songs she sung from Dick Tracy were on there. And actually, eerily enough, one of the songs of Dick Tracy is she does a duet with Warren Beatty. Yeah, it was weird. This was also the first movie that I got introduced to a slew of actors that I was going to come to love in years to come. I mean, this is the first time I ever saw Al Pacino. This is the first time I ever saw Dustin Hoffman in a movie. Charles Durning, of course, Warren Beatty. My mom was not going to let me watch Bonnie and Clyde. We got to see a lot of really great actors. Some, you could say, slumming. I mean, Paul Sorvino is only on screen for like maybe collective 4 minutes before but he's still memorable. You got Dustin Hoffman, who's living the actor's dream of giving a performance while not having to worry about remembering any of his lines.
Mumbles. Where's Lips Manless?
And there's even an early performance by Kathy Bates in the movie.
You called her out, and I didn't...
Yeah, in the scene where they're interrogating Dustin Hoffman, she's the stenographer in the back trying to...
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was her.
Cool.
There's a whole smorgasbord of top shelf talent in this movie. A lot of them, hidden under heavy makeup, but they all came in to do this movie, even for a couple days filming, but because I guess they just either A, wanted to work with Warren Beatty, or B, because they thought the project was so ambitious that they all wanted to be a part of it. And no one was more committed to this movie than Al Pacino. Al Pacino...
He was having some fun. I actually realized that his character, Big Boy, literally has a stream of conscience. He just keeps talking. No one's listening, or doesn't want to, and he just keeps talking. And actually, when he has to not talk, where they find a bug and he has to stop talking, he's mimicking and motioning. So he's talking without words because he has to keep talking. And it's just funny. This guy cannot hold still for 10 seconds, or he can't shut up.
Yeah, and
it's freaking hilarious.
It's great. And I'll say the centerpiece of the movie for me is a great meeting scene where Big Boy's actually trying to unite all the mob families, and of course he owns the room. He has this great ridiculous monologue. But I think the thing that made it even sweeter is the fact that James Caan plays Spud Spaldoni across the way. So you got the two Corleone brothers across the table.
You know that joke had to be said on set.
Yeah, and ultimately at the end, Michael Corleone blows up Sonny. So
the irony.
Irony. Just, James Caan can't be in a movie with Al Pacino without dying in a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they save the cannoli.
But actually, a fascinating thing about Al Pacino is that he had a lot of feedback in not just about the performance, but actually the design of the character. Because the character Big Boy Caprice was originally heavily modeled on Al Capone. I mean, it was unmistakable, but he deliberately kept it. He wanted to mold it into his own image, and honestly, it works. It makes for a much more interesting, less cliched mob boss character. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen a mob boss character like Big Boy Caprice.
Flat top, I'm like, dude, how do you even walk through a door? But he was scary. If that dude came after me, I'd be like, I'm out.
Well, that's what you get when you get William Forsythe.
Yeah, awesome.
Anyone who saw The Devil's Rejects, William Forsythe was more scarier than the Firefly family in that movie.
Yeah, I feel like Big Boy, what they did was they kind of enhanced aspects of Al Pacino's face excessively. So you could see Pacino in that.
Mm.
But it was an extreme amped up version. And they padded him up so he was like a freaking hunchback practically.
You're so focused on Big Boy that all of a sudden the blank shows up, and then you realize there's someone actually far worse who's actually pulling the strings, to the point where he's got his character dead to rights at the very end of the movie, where he's got him desperate.
Yeah, except watching that last bit where the blank has the chance to win. You really went that route?
You're smitten with
You're smitten.
with
You're
Dick
really
Tracy.
going with that, get over it!
He don't love
Done!
you.
Shoot, done! You take over! And that's, again, another... I like the blank, the character of the blank. I was a little irritated when I found out that was actually Breathless, because I sat there going, girl, you can sing, you clearly understand how to manipulate and pull strings. Absolutely. Do you know how to run a business, though? At no point does the film imply or show or anything that she knows how to run a mob. What happens if you win? you gonna do? Like, and also, like, she wants Dick Tracy to join her. I'm like, okay, well, he's a cop. Like, this guy is so goody-goody.
Yeah, he's kind.
He ain't gonna join you. He's gonna arrest you.
He's
so what's the point of trying to, like, pull a Darth Vader to Luke crap? I mean, at least Vader had more of a chance.
So it's pretty safe to say if there's any cash-in value on this movie, it's not about the plot. In fact, one could even say the plot is kind of all over the place. But fortunately, I think because the characters are defined as they are, Dick Tracy, the true blue cop, and all of his entourage, Sam Catchem and Pat Patton, all around him, all very true blue. And then you got because they're so well defined in their roles of what they are in the annals of a gangster movie, you don't really have to care too much about intricate plotting.
It's fine. I mean, I would say more, the plotting actually is okay. It's just certain motivations don't make sense. And they kind of went the simple, oh, she likes him thing. And I'm like, so...
Yeah.
I think they could have done a little bit better with that, but I understand.
As you can see, I've read a lot of the comic strip. The characters, all the characters that are in this movie, Warren Beatty was not sure if this was going to become a franchise. Good instinct. And he knew that there were people who loved the comic strip, and one of the defining traits of the comic strip, which made it memorable, was all these visually striking villains and the way Chester Gould drew them. And he knew that a lot of people were going to want to see these characters on screen. So he threw in every single villain he could. The Brow, Shoulders, Littleface, the Rodent, and Stooge Villers are all in the first scene, and then they all get St. Valentine's Day massacred. And
that was a little disappointing because all the trailers and all those promos made it look like they were in the movie the whole time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. I mean, a lot of them were like premiere action figures when Playmates released that.
Yeah! Oh, speaking of the action figures, they totally spoiled the movie for you.
Yeah.
If you got a hold of a blank, you could take the face off and it was breathless underneath.
And that killed me. Because when I was a kid, as I said, I was a rabid fan of Dick Tracy. So I bought all those figures, but the one left I did not have was the blank because they recalled it.
Because of the spoiler.
Because of the spoiler.
So if you find one, good luck.
Yeah,
And that was the one I wanted as a kid because I actually thought that character looked cool. I didn't know about the whole spoiler.
Yeah.
But I thought he looked really cool. I'm like, oh, that'd be a cool figure to have, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
We've seen it once in one store in Vegas.
In Vegas.
And it was like $300.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like mint in box either.
Yeah, it was like...
That's how rare the damn thing is. They had to do
What idiot thought that was a good idea?
I don't know. It just... I mean, you would have also had to pay likeness rights to Madonna. That's not a good...
Oh, you know those figures didn't look crap like any of them.
The Big Boy Caprice one looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, but that didn't look like Pacino.
Yeah.
It looked like Pacino with a ton of makeup on.
Well, in 1990, a movie like Dick Tracy coming out, the fact that the studio's still willing to pony up a lot of dough for a comic strip movie. Dick Tracy was a comic strip that wasn't even in circulation around this point. It was just one that a lot of people remembered at that time. But it has since kind of fallen, into obscurity. Now really the only memory anyone has of Dick Tracy is this movie. And that's kind of a shame, and the only way that people can get a hold of it now is a Blu-ray that came out like nearly a decade ago, and even then it's a Blu-ray with just the movie on it because Warren Beatty will not surrender the rights and will not allow Disney to make a proper special edition of this movie, which is a shame because there's...
And why?
Yeah.
Like, don't you want more money?
Yes, come on, Warren Beatty,
They got Disney Plus, man. They can have some fun.
You're not going to be living off the residuals of Town and Country, so you might as well enjoy, suckle at this teat for all the way until you die, which is fine. That's really good. You made a very imaginative film, a one-of-a-kind film, even with a lot of great gangster films that came out afterwards. People still remember Dick Tracy because of how unique it was, not just as a comic book movie, but as a gangster movie. And I feel like that an effort should be made to try to perpetuate its legacy, especially for its 30th anniversary. So do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think this movie should have gotten more love than it got? Or do you think that this is pretty much as good as it's going to get? Leave it all comments below. And...